All right, Caleb Plant criticizes Canelo Alvarez first 30 fights and criticizes performance in big major fights with elite level fighters. All right, let's talk about this. So, Caleb Plant over here now, he's comparing his amateur career with Canelo Alvarez's first 30 fights. Basically, Caleb Plant is saying that he fought more elite level opponents as an amateur than what Canelo Alvarez was fighting as a professional up to his 30th fight. Alright, let's break this down, right? Because these boxers, they love to talk and try to make things out, what they are not. Try to paint their opponent in a negative light or something like that, which I don't understand. You know what I mean? Listen, Canelo Alvarez started fighting at 15 fucking years old. 15 years old. Think about that. Anybody that come across my YouTube videos, you have kids that are teenagers. If you have 15-year-old, look at your 15-year-old and imagine putting your 15-year-old in there to fight grown-ass men, right? That's what Canelo Alvarez was doing at 15 years old. So, what does Caleb Plant want Canelo Alvarez to do? At 15 years old when he started fighting, he wants him to jump into major boxing matches with top elite fighters at 15 years old. Remind you, this is a guy that started fighting at 15 years old. That means he does not have an amateur career at all, right? So basically those 30 fights that Caleb Plant is talking about is Canelo Alvarez's amateur background. That's his fights that he used to build himself up, to learn, to fight different opponents, different styles, different sizes, right? To learn. That's what you do in the amateurs. Canelo Alvarez didn't have an amateur career because he started fighting at 15 years old. Think about that, right? So he used those fights to build himself, to gain, fight experiences, right? So that's what those 30 fights were. Caleb Plant was not being thrown in there with grown-ass men at 15 years old, right? Canelo Alvarez turned pro at that age. So you can't talk about, criticize his first 30 fights, talking about, you people give Canelo Alvarez all this credit, blah, blah, blah. Look at his first 30 fights compared to mine. Yeah, exactly. He did not have an amateur career, so he had to fight lower level oppositions to build up. Plus, he was a kid. You're not going to throw a 15-year-old kid in there with a fucking fighter that's 30 and 0. You understand me? So with that aside, so that's the case with the 30 fights. Now, Caleb Plant also criticized Canelo Alvarez performance in fights with Triple G, Erislandy Lara, and Floyd Mayweather. He's basically saying that he lost the first fight to Triple G, he lost to Lara, and he lost the Floyd. So he's basically saying he's 3 and 4, right? He's 1 and 4 or whatever the case may be. Well, he's saying that he struggled against Lara and he struggled against Floyd because he lost that fight, and he lost the first fight with Triple G, and he looks beatable. I mean, Caleb Plant, did you hear the names of those fighters that you just called? You called Floyd Money Mayweather 50 and 0. What is it, like 17 times, 18 times, 19 times, whatever the hell the number is, world champion, undefeated, the best ever. He fought Floyd Mayweather at 23 years old at a catch weight, right? And he lose that fight because he got outboxed by the best ever, right? Floyd Mayweather 50 and 0, multi-world champion, 5 division, right? That's one of the names you said he lost to. Okay, and then he lose to Erislandy Lara. Erislandy Lara at 154. At that time was a friggin' elite boxer that nobody wanted a piece of Erislandy Lara. Nobody wanted to fight Lara. And Canelo Alvarez took that challenge, right? Yes, I understand that fight looked rocky and that was a close fight, but to me, Canelo Alvarez won the fight because Lara started to coast in the later rounds of the fight. He started to think, he thought he had it in the bag, so he stopped fighting. You know what I mean? I feel like Canelo Alvarez won that fight with Lara, but it was a close fight that could have went either way. Now with the Triple G fight, the first one, I do believe that Triple G won that fight. You understand me? The one that was a draw, but I feel like Triple G won that fight, right? But why? Why were these fights so difficult? Those are all top level elite boxers that he's fighting. When you are fighting, when you are an elite fighter and you are fighting another elite fighter, you are not going to look your best. You're not supposed to look your best. That's why we want the best to fight the best. Because when the best don't fight the best, the fights are one-sided, right? That's what you are in right now, Caleb Plant. You are fighting a bunch of one-sided fights. That's why you look so good. Because nobody that you fight is a threat to you, to beating you. You are fighting low-level opponents. And that's why you look so good fighting these low-level opponents. Canelo Alvarez is fighting opponents equivalent to his skill. Triple G was equivalent to Canelo Alvarez at the time. That was the guy that everybody thought could beat him, and he gave him a tough fight because they were similar in skill. The best was fighting the best. Irislandi Lara is a problem for anybody, especially at that time when he was in his prime. Canelo Alvarez fought Irislandi Lara in his prime. Irislandi right now is older. So if you fight Irislandi Lara right now, you probably beat him easily because he doesn't have those quick hands, those reflexes anymore. He is an older fighter. When Canelo Alvarez fought him, he was in his prime. And he was a problem for everybody. Nobody wanted to fight Irislandi Lara. Right? Top level opponent. Floyd Mayweather. What can you say about Floyd Mayweather? Canelo Alvarez fought Floyd Mayweather at 23 years old, right? Granted, he had 42 fights at the time, so you know what I mean? Although he was 23 years old, he had a lot of fight experience, but he did not have experience against levels of opponent like Floyd Mayweather, right? And he asked for that fight. Canelo Alvarez asked for that fight, and he asked for it at the catchweight. So you can't blame Mayweather for that. Mayweather just beat him because he was better at the time. Now, what do you think happened from Floyd Mayweather all the way to Billy Joe Saunders fighting all of these levels of opponents? You know what I mean? Sugar Shane Mosley, Miguel Cotto, Irislandi Lara, Floyd Mayweather, Trout, you name it. He has fought them. Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, you name it, right? Triple G twice. He's fought all of these people, gaining fight experience against top level elite fighters. You, on the other hand, Caleb Plant, have no experience against top level elite fighters. And now you're going to jump in there and face one. That's why people are giving Canelo Alvarez the edge in this fight, because they have seen him fight levels of opponents greater or equivalent to your level, Caleb Plant. So they have the confidence in Canelo Alvarez's skill to be able to find a way to beat you, because he has fought these levels of opponents before. You are not the highest level of opponent that Canelo Alvarez have ever fought. He's fought people that are greater, equivalent or greater skill to you. You understand me? Whereas, and we have evidence of Canelo Alvarez winning those fights or putting up great performances in those fights. Whereas we don't have any evidence of you being in there with a top elite level fighter. So you cannot criticize Canelo Alvarez's resume. You can't criticize his early fights, because he started fighting at 15 years old. He had no amateur experience. Right? You can't do that. And you can't criticize his performance in high level top elite opponents, because those are high level top elite opponents. You are not going to look friggin' the best. Right? That's why we want the best to fight the best, because we know the other guy could beat the other guy. You are fighting opponents that we already know the outcome. And that's all I have to say. Peace. Like, share, and subscribe my videos.